Good day, everyone, and welcome to another webinar of the Animal Welfare Group Nigeria. I am Iyasiri Oluwaseun Sarah. I am the coordinator of the group, and today I'll be the host and also the moderator of today's meeting. The Animal Welfare Group Nigeria was established in 2019 following the gathering of students and researchers who are interested in animal behavior and welfare. And this meeting was at the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Nigeria. And over the years, we have grown. We now have over 80 members in 22 affiliations in the country. And our missions are to foster collaboration between researchers who are interested in animal behavior and welfare in Nigeria, in Africa, and the world at large. Our mission is also to networking amongst our members and also to increase awareness when it comes to animal welfare, to talk to the public, to educate the public about the importance of animal welfare. I am an associate professor at the Department of Animal Physiology, Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Nigeria, and currently a George Foster experienced researcher at the Humboldt University in Berlin, Germany. So I'm happy to welcome every one of you to our meeting. And I think I can see some new participants, maybe those who are participating for the first time. You're welcome. And please, I would like you to drop your questions in the chat box for the presenter, and then we take the questions immediately after his presentation. Our guest speaker for today is Mr. Chinedu Mogbo. Mr. Chinedu Mogbo have diverse educational backgrounds in biomedical science, public health, and medicine from prestigious universities in the United Kingdom and Grenada. Chinedu is an environmentalist and wildlife enthusiast. His passion for animals and nature dates back to his childhood days. He is fascinated by birds, lizards, and insects. He loves watching animal documentaries and visiting zoos and wildlife centers. His love for nature and animals led him to create this non-governmental organization, the GreenFingers Wildlife Conservation, where he advocates for the degradation of the environment and the extinction of species critical for the world's ecosystem. The GreenFingers operation started in October 2012, and currently they are catering for over 50 plant and animal species, and over the years, they have rescued over 300 animals, spanning over 60 different species. So it's a privilege to have Mr. Chinedu Mogbo on our platform to talk to us today on wildlife rehabilitation in Nigeria. And I believe everybody is going to gain a lot from today's meeting. Please kindly make it engaging by dropping your questions. And towards the end of the meeting, we are going to have an open discussion. If you have other things to discuss about, you'll be allowed to do that towards the end of the meeting. And that will be it for now. So Mr. Chinedu Mogbo, you're welcome to give your presentation.
Thank you very much. And hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here at this Animal Welfare Group Nigeria meeting. As I've been introduced, my name is Chinedu Mogbo, and I'll actually get right on with the presentation. For today, we'll be talking about, or I would like to share with you my experiences in wildlife rehabilitation, or on wildlife rehabilitation here in Nigeria. We have been in this field, or in this line now, for about 10 years and counting. So 10 years, currently 10 years and 10 months. And we've basically seen and learned quite a lot in this space. And it's my pleasure to be sharing that with you today. So I'll be sharing my screen. I'll be going through a few things on PowerPoint in a PowerPoint presentation. So yes, that's wildlife rehabilitation in Nigeria. That's me here in the first slide with a rescued sea turtle, just taking the stats. And in the second slide, you can see also, in the second picture, sorry, you can see myself also with bottle feeding a pangolin, which is a white-bellied pangolin, while another pangolin stays here on the shoulders there. So I'll go right on. So what we'll be looking at today, I'm going to be talking about this on the 6 major subheadings. I'm going to talk about what wildlife rehabilitation is, briefly, the need for rehabilitation, processes of rehabilitation, challenges faced in rehabilitation, uniquely to where I am here or where we are here in Nigeria, some of the success stories we've achieved, and the future of rehabilitation here also in Nigeria. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at the end of it, or type it in as stated in the chat section. So a bit of who we are, although it's been talked about. We started in a nonprofit organization. We started in 2012, although we registered as an NGO in 2018. Our focus is wildlife rescue, rehabilitation, release, and education. And our focus is on SDGs directly. It's on SDGs 14 and 15, which is life on land and life in water. And we also run a wildlife sanctuary and a wildlife educational hub as a result of in order to provide care for wildlife and also educate the populace on wildlife conservation here in Nigeria. And we're also going to be looking at we also focus on issues directly related to wildlife, such as environmental pollution. So when it's dealing with issues of plastic pollution or any other thing that directly affects our wildlife here in Nigeria, we also work in that space. Now, this is a saying that I always say that working with wildlife in Nigeria is like swimming against the current. It takes some next level of grit, passion to make it through. Now, I'm saying this from the perspective of an individual working in a space like this, and here in Nigeria. Now, like I've said, these are some of the things we're going to be looking at, and I'll just run through it. Now, a picture like 1,000 words. These are just some of the things I just wanted to put out there. That's an animal before, a primate before and after, and another animal is a pangolin, which is taken 3 months apart. So that's an example of some of the care which we provide and how effective these rehabilitation processes are. Now, the wildlife rehab is basically the treatment and care of injured, orphaned, or sick animals so that they can be released back into the wild. So that is what wildlife rehabilitation is all about. Now, the questions I want to answer here, because when we start talking about wildlife rehabilitation, we want to know, does Nigeria have wildlife? I'm sure some people wonder that why I'm even asking that question. A lot of people here in Nigeria don't even know that they have wildlife. They just feel the only thing you find in Nigeria are human beings and maybe the little small birds and things that are there. But Nigeria does have wildlife. But are there laws that protect the wildlife in Nigeria? Frankly, yes, there are laws that protect the wildlife in Nigeria, but are these laws carried out? Are these laws enforced? Are these laws even considered serious or taken seriously by the people who wrote the law and by the people who are supposed to enforce the laws? Now that is where we need, where the question really begs for a good answer. Now, are there organizations that are responsible for wildlife protection here in Nigeria? Yes. And what are regarded as wildlife in this case? In our case, I'm going to be talking mostly about animals. Wildlife, we know, refers to both plants and animals, but in my case today, I'll be talking about the animals in the case. Now, just a bit of what the law states in Nigeria. And it says there's prohibition of hunting or of trading in wild animals. That is the law. And if you read every section, you would see how this law has been carefully written. And basically, it's there. It's in existence. It exists. But is it carried out? That is what I cannot tell you. And these are animals that are in the first and second schedules that are protected by law, which means you will be arrested if you are basically found killing, hunting any of these animals in these sections. The tree pangolins, the lion, elephants, white-throated monkey, buffalo, red-flanked duiker, yellow casqued hornbill, the roan antelope, the baboons, and the monkeys, which are in Schedule 2. Schedule 2. Now, what I would want to say now is that the time this law was put out there, we still had abundance of all these animals there. But today we can only boast of about 50 lions left. Pangolins, we can't even talk about how many pangolins are left in our wild. Our elephants have been reduced down to a few hundred. The white-throated monkey now have become critically endangered here in Nigeria. The duikers are being used for bushmeat everywhere in every market. The yellow casqued hornbill are actually being traded as in wildlife markets for traditional medicine and for voodoo. And I can't say the same about other animals. Buffalo, the buffalo, whether it's a water buffalo, because it's only the water buffalo that we used to have, but now no longer can they be seen in the parts where they used to exist. And now these have basically gone basically almost extinct from locally. Now, other animals in the second schedule include crocodiles, which include the Nile crocodiles, the dwarf crocodiles, and actually the slender-snouted crocodile. Out of the 3 crocodile species, we have lost one. So we do not have any trace of the slender-snouted crocodile anymore here in Nigeria. It used to be popular here in Nigeria. We do not have, and there's not been anyone seen so far. Then the dwarf crocodile, which was also very, very prominent, now has become the threatened species because of the excessive hunting and abuse of such animals. So there's a major problem we are seeing here. Even though there's been a law, the law hasn't protected these animals over these years, and we have lost a majority of these animals. And I'm going to just explain a bit further. Now, there are organizations that are responsible for wildlife protection. Besides the one that has been set up by the Nigerian government, which is the Federal Ministry of Environment. And under that Ministry of Environment, you have different departments. You have forestry departments. You have, there's now a new one called the Wildlife Conservation Department. They've set up many departments within the federal ministry, within the ministry. And in every state, there is the local ministries also that are supposed to be responsible for wildlife protection here in Nigeria. Then we also have other international organizations, international NGOs. You have the Nigerian Conservation Foundation is also there. So there are organizations scattered all over Nigeria that deal with conservation. But conservation is a big word, if I must use that, because although I'll talk about that briefly in the forthcoming slides, it's quite massive because there are many ways conservation can be met. And now for each organization that is protecting wildlife in Nigeria, the question is what is their approach, what is their strategy? So some of them are community-based, which is good. I mean, people actually who are into community-based conservation of some wildlife in Nigeria, and they have recorded a lot of success stories also. And it's actually quite appreciated. We actually quite appreciate such efforts. Some also are into research, finding out certain things, producing data that also supports conservation on a different terrain. But I'll stop there for now. So what is regarded as wildlife? As referred to that, I will be looking at the animals or the animals that are basically found in our wild. Now, based on statistics, it has been recorded that Nigeria alone consumes about 500,000 tons of bushmeat per year. Now, I don't know how to explain this to you. So you multiply 500,000 times 1,000 to get the amount of bushmeat, of animal products that are being consumed by Nigeria on a yearly basis. So that basically refers to about how many? 500 million, if I must say that. kilos of animals are being killed every year to fuel the bushmeat trade. Now, the bushmeat basically is meat that is basically being consumed for food, for those of you that don't know that. Now, estimates suggest less than 100. Now, this was way back. This 100 was way back. Right now is reduced even further to 50. But right now we've lost the pygmy hippos, which used to be in the Niger Delta due to hunters and environmental pollution. Our elephant population have been completely reduced. The giraffes have been rendered extinct here in Nigeria, and that's not the only animal. There are other animals that have been rendered extinct here in Nigeria. Now, even for zoos, the zoos that want to pop up here now in Nigeria, they have to import animals from other parts of the world, other parts of Africa. And these are animals that used to be prevalent here before in Nigeria. I'm just trying to I'm saying all this to give you a perspective, the reason why this happens here in Nigeria. Now, the need for rehab. Why do we need rehabilitation here in Nigeria? Why do we need to have a rehab process in Nigeria? Now, rehabilitation supports wildlife conservation efforts. So people would say what you're doing or what I'm doing is not wildlife conservation, but they don't have. I don't agree to that fact, because without rehabilitation, we cannot have. We will not be able to sustain the amount of the number of animals we have, and even the animals we have that are there that are basically being either killed or being slaughtered without care, is the process of rehabilitation, and that gives them that second chance to live their lives back in the wild as wild animals. So it supports wildlife conservation efforts. It provides refuge for animals in areas where natural habitats do not suffice or they are absent. They also ensure that animals in compromised situations receive the best of care, because these animals are housed in sanctuaries. So the rehabilitation processes always, most of the time, happen in sanctuaries where we can actually have these animals to be kept for quite some time before they are basically taken back into the wild, where they actually came from. So how does it work? How does the rehab process work? Now, I have broken it down into 3 major steps, which actually further be broken down into further steps. So the first thing is rescue. Now, when I talk about rescue, I talk about actual active rescue, getting these animals from compromised situations. So where do we go as for us, even as an organization? We visit wildlife markets, we visit wet markets, we go to places where we see animals, human-wildlife conflicts, animals that are caught in human-wildlife conflicts. And even sometimes we are always called out for emergencies, for animal casualties, or sometimes even accidents that basically occur. So we are able to go there and rescue these animals and take these animals from such compromising situations and bring them out of such places. So the first thing is that the animal goes through a first aid, and its animal is checked to ensure that it's okay, no bleeding, is stabilized, certain things are, the first aid basically is done. Then the rehabilitation process can now begin, which includes housing of such animal, medicals, and even feeding and sustenance of such animals for the time it's in rehab. Now, every species, and I can't talk about all the species we work with now, because that would basically take a very long time, but every species has its own unique need, and that need has to be met to ensure that that animal is able to survive and thrive here with us within the sanctuary before it gets back into the wild. So what are the challenges? There are challenges that that do occur. There are quite a lot of challenges actually that occur to kind of like shake us to see how these processes may not even occur sometimes smoothly as planned or as predicted. Now, one of the ways, and I'll look at that, try to talk about them one after the other. One of them is the absence of professional medical care. Now, because, so like I always say, I'm not a veterinarian. I'm a wildlife conservationist, enthusiast, and we might have experiences on dealing with animals first aid. But there are some animals that we have seen that require critical care, professional care. But sadly, our veterinary, and I think these are the things we have seen, the problems we've seen here in Nigeria, because we are not even training the next set of individuals that will be able to provide this care. Now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about poor veterinary um, processes. And we've seen that the doctors, well, I've seen that the amount of doctors, vet doctors that come out of the hospital or sorry, universities are only experienced with cats and with dogs. Now that in its sense cannot help anything or cannot help anyone, because when you have procedures that you have to carry out on wild birds, for example, even animals that don't have features of cats or dogs, and these animals need certain kind of care or professional advice or professional intervention. We don't have that in Nigeria, and sometimes such animals will suffer and with such conditions until we're only able to manage that suffering until the animal passes on. Then we have also there's a lack of adequate facilities and equipment to attend to a lot of patients or animals basically needing critical care. Now, because of the work we do, we've always had to we've had to look outside beyond the shores of Nigeria to be able to acquire certain, not just even the facilities, even sometimes the food for these animals that you can provide for them in rehabilitation are not even found sometimes in the country and have to be brought in from different parts of the world so that we can actually provide the care these animals basically need. And how much more the medication, how much more the drugs, the health requirements that or the health needs these animals might require. These are the challenges that are faced, and sometimes most of these animals don't make the rehab, are not able to survive even the rehab process. Now, there's also the inability to reach animals in time. I mean, I live in Lagos. Lagos is actually known as a traffic capital. When I say traffic capital, where you can get stuck in the traffic for hours. So by the time you've gotten to an animal in a critical condition or in a conflict zone, is either the animal has been killed, or the animal something has happened, has been displaced, or the animal didn't survive whatever accident or whatsoever. So that's where another difficulty does actually occur. And sometimes these animals, we have to leave Lagos to go far away, as far as other states, even within the western part of Nigeria, southwestern part of Nigeria, or even western part of Nigeria, to be able to get to some of these animals. And sometimes we're not even able to get to them in time. And there are no facilities currently running that are able to ship or move animals with such speed or with such with such speed, if I must say. Then also the lack of proper transport mechanisms. Transport mechanisms either to move an animal from one location to another, or to it's quite complicated. And I must say this example, we did have we had to go to another state to pick up a bird. Now these are one of the big birds. It was actually an emu, which is one of the second largest birds, second largest birds. And we got there. There was basically the vehicle to move. We were not able to even get proper vehicles to be able to move this bird. Then the process of moving the bird got stressed. It was quite a difficult process, a difficult ride for that bird. And by the time the bird arrived, it was already beyond stress. And the ability to get that bird to resuscitate that bird back into was proved actually very difficult. And that bird actually didn't make it at the end of the day. So we definitely have incurred some form of loss many times, and with issues of transport, moving the animals, even having to move an animal that is in critical condition from the sanctuary to the place where it's supposed to get the treatment. Because of traffic delay in time, such animals never make it there before they pass on in the along the way. There's a high cost of feeding and medical interventions. Now, imagine what it takes to cater for such animals. Right now, we have over 110 different animals in our care. I'm not talking about just small animals, animals that demand quite a high amount of food and high amount of medical care. Right now, we're in the rainy season, and this is the time where we always experience spread of diseases at an alarming rate. And you can imagine how much toll this actually takes. Then also, there's also the lack of support and funding, which is, for me, is one of the most critical things, if I must say. When I started this work, my first salary was 50,000 naira, and I started this work using all that money to maybe get the supplies, get the equipment for the housing for the animals, and that process has remained the same for the last 10 years. I've had to support this work by myself. So I have to work. I can't do it full time because doing it full time, when I say doing it full time, I cannot be with the animals 24/7. I have to work. After work, then I go to the animals because I have someone who is there. So you have to pay for the labor, you have to pay for the feeding of the animals, you have to pay for medication, because right now nobody's there, nobody's going to give you free medication because of any animal, because they too also have to think about how they provide or how they obtain what they basically need. So it's quite difficult. We've had quite a lot of, I've had to even go into partnership with somebody a vet who is actually right now, I'd say our lifeline when it comes to wildlife. I mean, dealing with some of the issues, medical issues of this wildlife. And that really has alleviated a lot of the challenges we've faced in dealing with providing some medical intervention for these animals. But it's still quite a difficult terrain when we do not have the support. Now, the thing about what I've noticed in the last 10 years in Nigeria is that a lot of money can be given out for maybe tree planting. A lot of money can be dished out for picking up plastics and things like that. But when it comes to wildlife, it's new. It's a terrain that I don't feel people really are concerned about, especially when it deals with dealing directly with these animals. We are a wildlife NGO, as I must say, and it's not a case where we profit of anything, because, I mean, we have to care for these animals, and once we are done, we have to take these animals that we have cared for and put them back and release them back into the wild and hope that these animals have a better life or a better chance at survival this time. So without the support, without the funding, we are not able to, it makes the work very, very difficult. But like I always say, I'm grateful to God for past 10 years, for the individuals who have reached out, for people who have directly supported us. But organizations, we've written to a lot of organizations here in Nigeria, and wildlife doesn't seem to be on their radar of support or funding or whatsoever. Then we also have experienced a lot of sudden deaths. And sometimes when the animals are in our care, sometimes because there are certain things we cannot control, there would be outbreaks. And sometimes these outbreaks will claim quite a lot of them, the lives of some of them. And these are a lot of the challenges that I've faced. And I have to be very candid and very direct about things like this, because imagine how much investment, when I won't want to use the word investment even, how much you have put in, how much energy you have put to care for such animals. And if I use the word investment, it sounds a bit, but yes, you have put in so much, your time, your effort, your energy, and you've also put in finance. You have things like disease outbreaks, and because of lack of certain kind of expertise, we are not able to attend to the animal. We're not able to attend to the animal on time, and the animal suffers and the animal dies. And how painful that can actually be. It's actually very, very, very painful. But it's because we are passionate about what we do, and we are resolved. We made a resolve that this is the only thing. I mean, we've committed ourselves to doing, and we must ensure that we continue to push through despite these setbacks. We have quite a lot of success stories which we have basically experienced or basically can actually talk about. For example, when it comes to working with white-bellied pangolins, we have released over 30 different pangolins. I mean, these are pangolins, sometimes we've raised them from being juvenile or from being young, so young babies to become juveniles, or from being juveniles to a bit of semi-adults. And we've been able to guide these pangolins, feed them, cater for them, provide for them all through 6 months, 9 months. Then these animals are able to now go back into the wild. That's always been one of the joyous moments we have. And we're always glad that these are the things that basically happen. Then we also have the rescue, rehabilitation, and release of sea turtles. Now, whenever we have sea turtles come into Nigeria, we are always very, very alert. We put our ears to the ground, because one thing I think one of the Nigerians do is whenever they see any sea turtle, that's food for them. I mean, they know it's a season. They feel it's a kind of a blessing for them. But our ears on the ground, they have to rush there, get the sea turtles, ensure that they are properly rehabilitated, then released back into the wild as soon as possible. So for the sea turtles, we do not keep sea turtles even past 48 hours, except there is a medical condition that needs to be dealt with before, but we do not keep them there for too long. Then the rehabilitation process, which is currently ongoing for over 110 animals and counting, we've had to work with, the government was able to seize a group of African gray parrots that were bound for export, and we've had to cater for them since August on our own, by the way, so that they're able to get their wings, so that they can actually be able to go back into the wild. And we've also recorded successes with education. We've had so many educational intervention programs or educational programs that have raised awareness concerning quite a lot of species. At the pangolins, we have the black crowned crane, the crocodiles, the cross-river gorillas. We've done quite a lot of events to showcase or to buttress our passion for the educational aspect of. Then with other relevant partners and having global support also would definitely help us move as far as possible in trying to deal with the issues that we have here on ground. Now, I hope I've been able to take you through the different processes from the rescue of such animals from the web markets. And I decided to spare us from seeing the gruesome side of, or the gruesome side of what happens to wildlife here in Nigeria. But I mean, this is found almost everywhere, and not just Nigeria. Nigeria is not or peculiar in this case. But we have seen many countries here in here in Africa, and even beyond Africa, that have numerous wildlife sanctuaries. Now, the only wildlife sanctuary, even if we were to Google wildlife sanctuary here in Nigeria, we do have one, but there is another called the Afi, which is in Cross River. And besides that, there are no other basically that I have come across or have seen. So that's why it is important for a country that is as developed, even as Nigeria, especially the giant of Africa. I mean, we cannot be talking about wildlife and yet we have nothing to talk about or to say. And everything many of the things people also always say is certain document, they bring about documents when they cannot even account for the animals that we have in our communities, and we are losing them. A lot of animals we know only found here in Nigeria, and we have lost quite a few of them, and we need to do better, really. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write it in the chat so that we can get to it. And I'll just leave my contacts here also, if you need to reach out for anything. So I put my own LinkedIn contact, and for GreenFingers Wildlife Initiative, we've also put our contacts and where you can find it. Thank you very much. And
thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful presentation. And thank you for letting us see, the challenges, the history, the story behind, or the current situation of wildlife conservation in Nigeria. We really appreciate that. We have some questions in the chat box, and I also have some questions here for you. So I also want, if there is any participant that's still having a question, kindly drop it in the chat box so that I can take this. Yeah, the first question here is from Samuel Durosharo, and he's asking, how easy is it for you to release into the wild, animals that you have taken care of, and maybe you've at some point, had this bond, you have bonded with them for months while they are with you at the sanctuary. How easy is it for you to release them?
actually, it's one of
What's
the
the feeling
most,
like?
it's actually one of the most difficult things. But then again, because of, you have to weigh certain things. Would you rather the animal die in your care or in your hands, or thrive in the wild? Now, let me give an example. Pangolins are one of the animals that are almost highly impressionable. For example, if you work with a pangolin 1 month, 2 months, such pangolin begins to bond with you, which is actually very rare for such species. But the thing about the pangolins is that you cannot cater for them. Completely. Now you have to ensure that this animal is able to get what the animal needs, and the animal needs the wild. The animal cannot produce in your care. The animal will not mate with its find a mate in your care. So the only way that you know that such an animal will continue to thrive and that you want to be a part of the conservation story is to ensure that the animal gets back into the wild. And we don't just say any wild. We are also very careful on where we release such animals. There are certain places here in Nigeria that are protected spaces, and we want to ensure that those animals get that protection. So we ensure we take those animals to such places. We cannot, it's difficult, yes, but it has to be done. It's a necessity if you really want to, if you say that you are part of the conservation story, or you're actually working in conservation.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know, you showed the picture, maybe a few slides before the end, where you had, what animal was that?
That was a monkey. I was a baby monkey. Yeah, it's a baby monkey. And I mean, you can imagine for such. But however, there are some that release makes it's actually very difficult to do releases. For example, for monkeys, you cannot rescue one single monkey, go and release one single monkey. If you do that, you are basically subjected that monkey to, you basically killed it, because it will not find another troop to integrate with properly. If it's a male, it makes it worse, because for males, they don't just get called or integrated into a group. So they have to go together as a troop, so that they can go together and live out their lives together in the wild. So such animals like that, especially that monkey, has grown, but is still with us in the sanctuary. And that's why we have that sanctuary, where animals that are not yet ready to go back or haven't found that troop will remain. And for as long as possible, some have been there for 6, 7 years and are still getting the care that they need to get to live out their lives.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you so much. There's a whole lot that you've said, and I would like to pinch on it later. But I just want to take the questions in the chat box. There is another question from Samuel Juroshari. Say, what is the level of collaboration or cooperation between your organization, the Ministry of Environment, and other conservation organizations and universities?
Okay, I'll start first with the universities. We have taken quite a lot of students on that are studying zoology. So I have them coming to study, to do their IT or their COS programs for 3 weeks, 3 months, 6 months. However, like I always say that because I always have to interview these students, and knowing that, okay, why did you study zoology in the first place? Is it something you just ended up with, or is something you're passionate about? Some of them just ended up there. Then you can see that they can't even thrive in a wildlife environment, which basically means that it's a problem for them. I mean, post here is either they warm up to the idea of caring for animals. Some of them may never have seen, or never, many of them have never seen the animals they see here before. And for some, it's a learning curve, it's a learning process. And some of them are open to it. Some of them are so frightened by the fact that they have to actually work with an animal. I said, why do you do zoology in the first place? But these are some of the things we've seen, but I'm happy to see how many of them go through this process properly, soundly. They adapt to the changes that they've seen, and the process is seamless for them. And many of them, even after their process, after the zoology, they would want to come back to see if they can work with us, to see how they can continue, because quite a lot of things I expose them to. I ensure that they do research. I ensure that they do a lot of research, even within the animal, for the animals there. What other things improvise? Okay, these are the things that the animal is expected to take. How can we improvise? So there's quite a lot of hands-on work when working with some of the animals, and most of all is actually the care that they also support our care workers or the care staff that we have to provide it. So that's for those in the universities. For the Federal Ministry of Environment, for the Ministry of Environment, I said earlier that currently we have in our possession African grey parrots that have been seized by NESRIA, right? Seized by NESRIA, and now such animals are with us. So we are caring for such animals right now. And I'm sure by the time the animals have gone through the rehab process, they would be glad to pick these animals and go do the release wherever they want to do the release. And that's the only way that's one of the ways we support. However, because we are working with them, for me, I always say that there must be a participation from the other side, from the government also. It's not a case of just bringing the animals, dropping them there, then disappearing and coming back after 2 years to say, okay, can we have those animals now? I want to go and release them. Now that's where it becomes problematic, because now it's no longer a collaboration. It's more or less like we're just using such individuals. Then for other wildlife bodies, we do work. I mean, I work closely with quite a few of them. The Nigerian Conservation Foundation, one of them. I work closely with them. We do quite a lot of educational programs together. And also other individuals that I know. We have this whole network of group of individuals that we are working with: sea turtle rescues, sea turtle rehabilitation. So we do quite a lot of that. A lot of collaboration is going on as we speak concerning wildlife here in Nigeria with other NGOs.
Well, thank you so much. That's a whole lot of work, because I also noted it here that do you have people maybe from who are doing research on wildlife animals that even come to your sanctuary to say, okay, let's do some work. Let's see how this animal is recovering over time and things like that. Do you have a collaboration with on a research work, based on the animals that you have in the sanctuary?
I have only had one recently when I had some students who were doing a research. I mean, they got a grant to do some work on African grey parrots. Basically, they just came to the sanctuary to take some samples. But besides that, I've not really had any other person coming in to say, how does this animal recover over time? What is the growth rate of such animals? what are the rehabilitation processes going on for these animals. We've not really had that happening. It's just maybe to come pick up some samples. What is happening? Okay, then if they have to learn about anything, but it's just the IT students that we do have that stay for a long term, 3 months, some of them 6 months before.
Yeah, because I think there's a whole lot that can be done in collaboration with researchers, and I know in my university we have, is it the Forestry and Wildlife Department? So, it's what you have in your sanctuary are animals that may not be readily available elsewhere, that they can have access to in terms of maybe studying them or taking good care of them. And let me ask you this question, because like you told me during the interview, you actually studied as a medical doctor, and now you're ending up as a wildlife conservationist. That means you now have to understand the behavior of these animals, of each of these animals, and also how to care for them, which is what we do. That is animal behavior and welfare. So how is it like for you? Because you don't know what kind of animal you may be called upon, or maybe you just you came across an animal and you think, okay, this animal is endangered or is being haunted or is being maltreated or something like that, and you needed to rescue or buy it, because I know you do a lot of buying of these animals and taking them to your rescue center. So before, okay, if it's an animal that you've not had the encounter with, or how do you know how to handle such animal? To what extent do you, look for information, to be able to know, okay, this is the right food, this is the way to care for this animal and things like that?
I like that question because it's basically what we have to face almost every day. So what normally happens? So when we first started, it was quite easy working with birds alone. So we started working with birds. We started having to, but I have had to myself. By myself. I say train myself. Not just locally, like online. I've attended quite a lot of online trainings. People have connected me. Also in contact with certain kind of some hospitals in South Africa also that work with wildlife. I've had to get advice. Once I've gotten the animal, I don't know what, a lot of times I've gotten the animal, I don't know what to do. I have to reach out to them quickly to be able to tell us, okay, you're able to do this, do that, do this. And from there, we're able to now manage the cases or manage certain kind of cases and chart the costs of such animals through the process. I think one of the weirdest experiences I've had was working with the bats. It was a bat fell down somewhere in the sanctuary. I had never worked with a bat before. Once I told people I'm working with a bat, they said, get rid of it quickly. That's rabies. Rabies, they called, there's no disease they didn't call. But I said, no, it's an animal also. I'm sure there's definitely a way we can work with this. And for almost a year, we worked with this bat. And I think the bat couldn't fly because, it's the wings, something had happened to the wings, so it couldn't even fly anymore. We had to start feeding it. So it was on liquids, and after we progressed to insects, and imagine getting a lot of insects to feed such an animal. So, and the process actually continued. And it was new, but we had to learn on the job because the life of such an animal is at stake. And you have to now, okay, we've not done that before. Okay, but we've seen that this works for this. Certain animals are lactose intolerant. If they get any form of lactose, they will die. You see that happened the first time. Even sometimes where when we're rescuing adult duikers. So there was a time we used to rescue adult duikers. When we bring the animal will stabilize for a bit. Then after 2 days, with no sickness, no condition, the animal dies. It happened the first time. What happened? We could not even tell. We took it for kind of like a checkup for people to check, okay, what could have killed such an animal. We didn't really get some concrete responses. We couldn't get some concrete responses. And we were surprised. I was wondering what could it be? It happened again. Second time, the same thing. After 2 days, the animal died. It was later, after some time of research, we discovered that such animals suffer from cardiomyopathy. They are so fearful that by the time they get into the hands of people, their hearts expand and enlarge because of the fear. It builds, like their hearts expand. Then when you think they have calmed down, they are quiet, there's a collapse or a relapse, and it collapses the whole cardiovascular system, and that animal just passes out. Now, this is something that if we didn't know, we wouldn't have, if we would just be wondering, is it a sickness? Is there something? But when we started working with the young dikers, the baby dikers, that we had to bottle feed. I'm sure you saw one of them in the picture with the monkey behind it. We had to bottle feed, hand raise them. Those dikers have been here 2 years, 3 years, and they are still doing well. So yes, sometimes it does, we have to learn on the go. With sea turtles, it was completely a different thing. Sometimes we will rest, by the time we've rescued the sea turtle and we've brought it away from there, that sea turtle dies. So, you know, like what could have happened? Then it happens again, we take better precautions, then we're able to get that one quite far out. So sometimes, like I said, it's no, there is no blueprint. Most of the time, there's no blueprint for rehabilitation, especially here in Nigeria. We don't have it. And for you to even attain or acquire such information, it will require you leaving your space, going out of your space, going to other countries where it works perfectly, where they have where they have processes that work, and learning from them, and which is what we also do in the same process. But like I said, sometimes we can be caught on that when we didn't know that this animal was even here in Nigeria, and we are seeing it for the first time. And you can imagine how such times take us unawares. And but we've really learned how to adapt quickly to such changes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, in the chat box again, we have from Samuel Durusha. How do you ensure that the wild animal safety, how do you ensure their safety after reintroduction into the wild? Any track
Well,
or something?
so before now, we do not track. I mean, tracking, for example, most of my release sites are as far as Ibadan, as far I mean Lagos. So my release sites are in Ibadan, some of them are in Osun State. I cannot, the commuting is a problem. You know, I mentioned challenges, transport is a challenge, but because these areas are protected, and that's why I take due diligence to ensure that these areas we choose are protected and we can only trust. I only recently started tagging sea turtles. So we've tagged sea turtles, but even the tagging are not the GPS tagging that I'm able to monitor and track. Now, those things are expensive. I'm dealing with the feeding. I cannot invest in trackers or in our scope, but we just do what we can and trust the process to continue, basically.
Oh, that's a great one. Well done. Yeah, there is a comment here from Utibe Okon. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. How do you domesticate these feral animal species without being infected, given that most of them have some zoonotic diseases?
All right, thank you. So domesticating is never one of our, we do not attempt domestication. We do not even try it. As much as possible, if I have an animal that is already an adult, I will ensure as much as possible to stay far away from it so as not to ensure that that animal imprints on humans. Now, when I discover an animal has imprinted on you, on a human, I don't let that animal go. We don't let that animal go because it will always end up back with a human if it's back in the wild. So most of the animals, for example, like pangolins have very acute sense of wilding, if I must say. So no matter how a pangolin is used to, once it goes back into the wild, it becomes wild. I mean, it stays in its zone. It doesn't look for humans to maybe to relate with. The same thing for civets. Civets also is the same. A civet will not remain domesticated, no matter how long you think that you want to. Once it grows to a certain age, the feral instincts basically kick up. Now, with respect to zoonotic diseases, I mean, like I said, I mean, how do I put it now? I haven't had any experience directly with any zoonotic disease, but we always have, and that's still about care. I mean, care, you have to take every precaution. ensure that you're not bitten, ensure that you don't get the animal fluids into you one way or the other. So even the process of rehabilitation, there must be your sanitation must be extremely must be high to ensure that your environment is clean, and you're definitely going to risk animal zoonotic disease that's coming from animals to human. However, sometimes we've seen when a species jumps from one animal to another. Now, sometimes we've seen that happen, especially between species, when certain animals carry a certain kind of pathogen, but doesn't affect that animal. But in the present, when another animal is there, it jumps to such an animal, and that animal is infected. Now, we've seen that happen before, and that actually led to either one of the animals not surviving because of that jump. But that also informs processes and procedures to ensure that some of these animals, especially animals in the nursery, the baby animals, that they are well isolated.
Well, thank you so much for answering all the questions. So I want to appreciate you once again for your presentation on this group. And I believe that we all have been able to see the reality of what happens to the wildlife animals and what it takes, to save them from going into extinction. And we are happy that you are doing this. It's something you're passionate about, and we wish you the best. And if there is any way anybody can help, at least they can contact you on LinkedIn, like you have said. So if you have anything to support this initiative, well, I believe that will go a long way to help the animals. So if there is any participant that still have any comment for the presenter, kindly indicate by raising your hands. We have passed the time, so we can just take 2 more minutes to do that. If you have any further comments for our participants, kindly indicate by using the reaction button. You can raise up your hand, and then we take that just in the next 2 minutes before we wrap up the meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chinedu. You are doing a good work. I asked that question because I don't see myself rescuing an animal, taking care of that animal for months, and I want to introduce that animal back into the wild for one hunter to just go and kill that animal. I'll be destabilized. Honestly, I'll be destabilized because I will have bonded with that animal and we are more or less friends. So that's why I asked that question. And I think the next you can do, I know it's expensive, is to be tracking the animals that you have rescued and introduced into the wild. Because to me, I will see it as a labor loss. If I rescue the animal, I take care of the animal, then I send back to the wild, and somebody just go there and kill that animal. I will never be happy. I will never be happy.
I think even tracking may not even solve the problem, because if you track it to some extent and the animal is being shot by you don't know where the hunter is, what will you do at the end of the day? So it's still not going to solve the problem, but it can all just give you an idea about where the animal is and how long it is still alive. At least you are sure of that. But once the animal, is killed, it is killed. There is nothing you can do about. So let me take from Emedion, please. Emedion, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful presentation. Please, I want to ask the presenter, in one of his slides showed a picture of him, let's say cuddling a baby monkey. Isn't that risky? In terms of the question you just answered, and then please, I would also love you to throw more light on the meaning of imprinting. I don't really understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. There's something that happens, especially, there are certain videos that I have. I wish I could show them, but if you were to check out our social media, like on Instagram, you'll see some of that. Animals like monkeys, for example, when they are born, they always remain attached to their parents. So there's this strong maternal and attachment these animals have. Now, if an animal, for example, like a monkey growing up, loses such attachment, it's a different thing entirely, because he grows up without that attachment. So you can imagine what other kind of instincts that animal would have lost. As they grow, they learn how to feed, they learn how to bond with, other monkeys within the troop. And there's quite a lot of social connections these animals have while they are growing. So actually, this process, what you saw me doing, was one of the things that even I was encouraged to do. Don't leave them once they are, especially the young ones, once they are rescued, because to get a young monkey, you would have killed the mother. Now, don't leave them to just, don't put them in a cage and let them. They have to feel that bond. So it could involve, they actually stay on the chest, they are attached to the chest of their mother. So they feel the warmth, they feel the heartbeat of the mother. They have to grow up still with that mindset per se. But what we now do is that by the time we've been able to manage it for quite a while, a short time, we now begin to introduce other animals to that. So you see that monkey formed a close bond with another species of monkey around the same age. So they became very, very close. You'll see it always attaching to that monkey. And we are happy that it's doing that, because that is what it would do if it was its own mother. However, now it's doing the same thing with another monkey. It means that that connection, that social connection, we do not want it to be lost. Now, I've seen that has happened with monkeys, with each other. It has happened with a monkey and a duiker. I'm sure you saw the picture of the monkey holding a duiker. That's another baby monkey trying to bond with another animal. Then we have to do that also sometimes to separate us from the animal. Know that it's an animal and not that it's human. That's when we now begin to cut off from such an animal. If not, you have what we call the imprinting mentality. The imprinting is that an animal sees you as its provider, as the parent, as the mother. Will always, wherever you go, the animal will go there with you. The animal will just want to stay attached to you. That's what imprinting is. It happens in every animal, birds, whatsoever. If the animal, you're the first thing the animal sees when it hatches, it stays connected with you. So these are the things that we try as much as possible to avoid, so that whenever that animal gets back to the wild, he will not see a potential hunter and think that it's the friend, or oh, this human took care of me, let me go back and meet another human, but not knowing he will be killed. I mean, that's basically easy pickings. But once we've seen any animal that has imprinted on humans, we don't let that animal out of our sight. Oh.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Is there anybody else that have a comment, who has a comment? Yeah. So once again, thank you, our speaker, Mr. Chinedu Mogbo. Please, he's on LinkedIn. Kindly follow him on LinkedIn. And I think they have a YouTube channel where they post a lot of this animal rescue work that they do. So you can also check them up on their YouTube channel as well. So to everyone that joined today, I want to really appreciate you for your time and support. And also we are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Twitter as well. And we also have a YouTube channel where we post our webinars. So hopefully this also will be uploaded on the YouTube channel.